What's up, guys? Straight from the chest. My name is Justin Groth, and I'm your host on this personal development podcast. Guys, welcome to all of you who are new first-time listeners. Thank you for viewing me and tuning in with me. It means a lot to me. And for everybody that's been with me for any length of time, thank you to you too, because I am just so thrilled that you guys even give me 2 minutes of your time. It means a lot to me, like I've told you on many previous podcasts. Guys, I'm going to start off with this. Deadlifts suck. If you're uninitiated with fitness, you probably don't know what a deadlift is. Basically, a deadlift is you lifting weight off of the floor. It's called a deadlift. Okay, deadlifts suck. Let me tell you why deadlifts suck. Deadlifts suck because initially when you get into lifting, you think your bros are going to tell you, hey man, you got to do deadlifts for a big back. And in my experience, it's just not the solution to a big back. And if anything, a deadlift will make your back look disproportionate because it really works only like mainly two areas of the back, traps and erectors. That's what you get a lot of in terms of back development. And if you're in this from an aesthetic point of view, you have big erectors and big traps, but you have no lats and no mid back. I mean, your back's gonna look like shit. So in terms of the risk to reward ratios too, deadlifts suck. They don't build a big muscular looking back like a row and a pull up and a bent over barbell row, a one arm dumbbell row, pullovers, like any of those movements will. You can argue that if someone has those movements alone and X's out deadlifts, they're gonna have a way better developed back than you are. But deadlifts are very imperative in terms of understanding biomechanics, understanding motor control throughout your body and getting structural strength to your hips, low back, and really building your legs as well, because they're the first third of the movement is going to be predominantly leg drive. So the reason why I start off with that is because we're taught to believe that in lifting you got to do deadlifts or back, and you got to do this and you do it consistently, and this is what produces a big back. And the reason why I say this is because, guys, I've had over 15 years of training. And I'm not talking about I went into training and I skipped through a few years and I went back training. No, I'm talking about this is 15 years all the way through. No breaks, except for like a scheduled week off here and there. So, and I can tell you, hands down, deadlifts suck. And they're not the way to a big back. But I remember doing them consistently for years, and I got my deadlift up so strong, and I was doing it repetition, like I just had massive repetitions with heavy weight, and I still my back looked like shit. You know why? Because I predicated the wrong movement in my back training. But I was told, this is what you got to do. Now, to those of you who don't lift weights, you've probably tuned me out. You may have shut me off already because you're like, guys, talking about deadlifts. I don't care. I don't even know what a deadlift is. And furthermore, I don't care about deadlifts. But here's where it applies to even you. You do something in a repetitious manner because of the results you feel like it's going to accrue. But oftentimes, you're doing something that it's not accruing any type of momentum or any type of result for you. And it takes years before you realize this is not working and I got to do something different. And so that's what deadlifts taught me. Deadlifts taught me that in terms of what goals I'm after, in terms of my bodybuilding goals and building my body to the best aesthetics that I can, deadlifts suck. I'm not powerlifting. I'm not trying to become a strongman competitor. I'm not doing any of that. I'm bodybuilding. I want to aesthetically be the best look that I can. I want to attain the best look that I can. And that means being proportionate, not disproportionate. But it took me years to figure that out after repetitious training of the deadlift. Now what this means to you is oftentimes, and I even feel it on this podcast, guys, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I center around the same viewpoints and principles I might cut them and dice them in different ways, but they're relatively speaking the same element. I speak those constructs because they're the only thing that really matters in life. They're the core. They're the substratum of what your being should be. Anything else is just accessory. But I don't really talk about the accessory because the accessory to me doesn't matter a whole lot, especially in this position of my life or the posture that I have in my life right now. Those things don't really apply to me right now. The things that apply are the core foundational principles that I preach on or I talk about throughout pretty much every podcast. I might apply them differently in different regards to hit different people and have them relish in with or resonate with different people. But at the same time, they're, like I said, if you've been following me for a length of time, that is the continuum here. And I'm not mad about that. Let me tell you why. Even though I feel like I'm skipping, like I'm a record that's skipping. I feel that way, and maybe you feel that way in your day-to-day. You feel like you're skipping, and you know that term broken record? I don't even understand where they got that term, where the narrative behind that came from, because a broken record is not a skipping record. I mean, maybe it is, but I would imagine when you put a record on, this came from being an actual vinyl record. You put a record on the record player, you set the needle on, it's going to skip over that. Let's say it's a crack in the record. It's going to skip over the crack, right? But it's going to keep going into the next verse, if you will. I would imagine. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. It goes into this next verse, the next verse, and the next verse, and the next track eventually. But when you've ever played a CD or anything that skips, it skips over the same 2, 3, 4, 5 second little synapse, right? That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm skipping. I'm a skipping record or skipping track. But the difference between the way I feel about skipping and maybe the way someone else may feel about skipping is I'm skipping at the same time. I feel like I'm skipping on purpose. And I'm skipping on purpose because I'm building momentum against my skip so that when I'm ready, I'm going to be catapulted to the next track. But I can't get to the next track yet because I'm just not done here. And I got to keep skipping. I got to keep skipping over the same beat to make sure that it's indebted to me, that it's so ingrained that I can't mess it up. I can't mess whatever this skip is trying to produce in me. I'm going to know it backwards, forwards, sideways, in and out. I'm going to know it. And I can't move to the next track until I know this 1,000%. And that's what's happening in your life right now. That's what's happening in my life. I feel like I'm skipping. But guys, the skip is necessary. It's so utterly necessary. And it's going to frustrate you. And because you feel like you're an idol. But really, your skipping is not being done in vain. And you're not staying an idle. You're producing a lot of momentum on the back end. That's going to be able to be the impetus towards your new level. Or that new precipice you're going to stand on inevitably. But that doesn't come easy. And that takes time. And you have to give patience to this process. I know you hear it all the time, but are you applying it? That takes time. You're not as good as you think you are. And that's the reality. You're not as good as you think you are. You may be good, but you're not as good as you think you are to be at the level that you want right now. And that's the reason why you're still skipping a beat. That the beat is necessary for you to skip right now. Because if you were in that next track, you wouldn't even know what to do. You would think you do, but once you're actually set in that particular element, you would crumble. And God's essentially saying, look, man, you may be frustrated with me. You may be thinking you're pounding your head in the ground and you're just watching grass grow here. But trust me, there's an element to this process. And it takes finesse to understand this. But you need to skip this beat so many times before you can go to the next track. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not mad. But this is the 23rd episode. I honestly feel like I'm going to go hundreds more before I'm even noticed. Not to say that I'm trying to get noticed on this podcast, but before anybody actually develops some type of, before this podcast develops any type of prowess, so to speak, I feel like it's going to be hundreds of episodes in. And I'm not mad at that. Because I understand that's a part of the bleeding process. That's a part of, and there's multiple things that are going on in my life right now that are all a part of, in conjunction, play a role. Not just this podcast, it's not the only thing I do in my life. But it's one of them, and it's one that I don't have to do. And so the reason why I continually do it is because I feel like it's a part of my direction that I'm being called to. But also, I feel like it's also a type of test I need to pass. Because, if I get caught up with the analytics, I'm going to dig this in. I'm going to put this equipment, I'm going to bury it. If I look at the analytics, I'll bury it. Because I can tell you they're probably not massive or big or even kind of big or anything. But that's not the reason why I do it. And that's the reason why I continuously come on here and I give you the same principles, because they are what your foundation needs to grow. It's the only thing. And if you're spending too much time on the accessory movements of your life, or the accessory plays, and you're not putting an emphasis on your substratum, which means your foundation, then you're like quicksand. You'll have nothing. And whatever you do gain will be empty attachments, will be empty in the long run. And there's something about people that I'm not saying that I feel this way for everybody, because there are some people in the world that are not good, and you know that right when you see them, right when you hear them talk, or right when you engage with them. You're just like, you're not good. You're not a good apple. Maybe they're nihilistic and they have a drought on life and they just feel like, there's no meaning to this life. If you can't persuade them, then it's better that you don't try. And those are the types of people that I'm not really speaking to. I guess I am, but that's kind of a touchy subject. Because I don't not like people, but there are people that rub me the wrong way. I'm just telling you how it is. I'm not perfect, man, by any means. And I'm telling you that I know that there are people that rub me the wrong way. There may be people that rub you the wrong way. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I do this for people, but at the same time, it's building me up. It's like my own medication. And I feel like I need this. And that's why I don't care who watches it. I don't care who listens to it. And I just leave that in God's hands. I just continuously bring the content and I produce that because that's what's important to me. And that's the same. It may be the same but different. But that's what's visceral to me. So that's what I'm going to continually predicate this podcast on and my word on. It's not going to change because everybody needs to hear this continuously. This needs to be the continuum in most people's lives, not everybody's life, because you haven't had this shit figured out because you're not that good yet. So we all need it, me included. I need to continuously speak this and I need to continuously exercise this type of vocal expression because if I don't, I'm going to lose it. And if I lose it, there goes my purpose. And you are only your purpose. Don't confuse that with anything else. But there's a way to get there. And hopefully these words help to incite that navigation. And until then, I'm a skipping record. But I'm going to be a proud skipping record. Done.